each of these places, every property he's ever acquired, he decided to like dedicate it to Sahib Zaman. So every time when people talk about how what he lost, he always say, no, they didn't demolish my property. They demolished the property of Sahib Zaman because I dedicated it to him, and it's not mine. You understand? And he really doesn't see it as he has lost anything when you speak to him. You know, all of their stories are very inspiring, first of all. They are very, very inspiring because I remember when all of the, you know, what's going on with Ahad Tamimi especially was going on, we were really impressed. Every time you hear about it, you're thinking she's really young, you know? And the fact that they are strong, they're standing strong for, all of them are standing strong for what, like for their freedom, for what they believe in. That's really something that is just inspiring for everybody. And I think what I can only say to them, not because I'm more of in a position to actually necessarily say what they're supposed to be doing, but I think I can only advise them to stay strong on what they're already doing and to not waver no matter what happens. As I've mentioned earlier, my dad has been shot several times, my mom as well. They were both shot several times because when they were shot, it was the soldiers were just shooting randomly at all of us, and I was with them at the time, you know, and and they had operations with the military, you know. My mom, especially when they were operating on her, they didn't give her any local anesthetics, no anesthetics, no painkillers, nothing. They operated on her, the soldiers, they operated on her and removed some of the bullets while she was fully conscious, no painkillers whatsoever, you know. And to this day, she still lives with some bullets in her body. I don't know, something around, there's some shrapnels in her stomach and something else in her thigh. And as for my dad, they have removed all of the bullets that are in his body, but his shots affected him very much. Like, for example, his hand for a long time was kind of affected. He couldn't use one of his hands, and now it's a bit better, but he couldn't use it for a very long time, and he can see with his eye. He lost an eye. He lost one of his eyes, and the one that he still has, he can barely see. You know, he can barely see, and even when he can see, he cannot see all the time because he has to use a glass with a correction of like +19, and it's too much pressure on the eye. When he uses the glasses, he gets headaches, so he cannot look at anything like for a long time. He has to just look at something very briefly, and he says he sees everything very distorted, you know. And he had a stroke recently as well, and he's still recovering from the stroke, just like I mentioned earlier. And as for where they are currently in the security, the SSS, the DSS security in a certain facility that the DSS owns, and it's basically like a house, but in the middle of the DSS sort of, in the middle of the camp or something like that. And they have been there for like the past roughly one and a half year, and then for about a year they were in another place, and then for another year they moved them to a different place. And we have contact with them. Before we only had contact with them for about 1 hour every week, something like that. But now we have contact with them almost every day. We are able to contact them, but they're still limited, you know, because their most basic need is to be able to not only see doctors, but to have the doctors be able to see them and have the proper facilities to treat them, you understand? And it's something they still don't have. And as you know, as far as their detention goes, we submitted a court case about that, and it was ruled in the court for the past 1 year now that the detention is illegal and they should be released, but they're still not released to this day. So yeah, that's just basically what is going on with them. You know, many efforts are being made, and especially recently there's continuous protests almost every single day, especially in Abuja, and that's really good on a certain level, because you know, when there are protests in other parts of the country, I feel like to some extent it does affect the government, but to some extent they're still able to kind of not care as much. But especially now with the protests every single day in Abuja. It's like they have all the government officials working there, and they've got like all the embassies there, everything like that. And so everybody is affected. Everybody's seeing what's going on. Everybody's hearing what the people that are protesting are talking about. So it is something that will facilitate to progress on the issue. But I can't exactly say that what is the next move for the Islamic movement in terms of when it comes to their release, because many different efforts are being made. Not just the protests, people have been speaking and doing other things. Certain people have been campaigning in other places. It's not enough, it's not enough. It's never enough because there's no results to this day. And also some people are quite silent about the issues. When you look at certain people who speak about almost everything, when it comes to this issue, nobody's saying, certain people aren't saying a single thing on it. So basically that's all I can say about them. No, I don't. I think it's good, and it is making a certain form of impact. Different people internationally speaking about this issue, people from other parts of the world speaking on this issue, on their release and the release of all the other brothers that are being kept in detention. But with that being said, it's not enough, because I feel like there's a lot of people, when it comes to the international, international voice of people calling for their release, it's not enough, because there's many people who could speak about it but are silent about it, and there's people who say, oh, we care, but do nothing precisely to help, nothing more than we care. Some people don't even make any effort on furthering the awareness. And I know this because when we encounter people, we can see that a lot of people don't have an idea of what's actually going on, even though we speak about the issue. But there's no way we can be the only people speaking. Many more people have to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.